Hey there, internet friends. Welcome to That D Plus Show. Class is in session for the only show from that nerdy site that lets you know what kind of quality to expect right from the name. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and each week we dive into a different Disney Plus offering and discuss its history, how it holds up today, and our general impressions. If you like the show, we'd love it if you like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Joining me today, as always, Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cameron?
Hey, what's going on?
What's going on is today we are talking all about Daredevil, Born Again. The first two episodes that dropped this week, Heaven's Half Hour and Optics. Also, I'll give a plug up front here. Back episode 144 of that D Plus show, I did the Netflix Daredevil debut episode, Into the Ring. I think I did that as a solo episode. It was what was it for? It was in honor of Daredevil appearing in She-Hulk, I think.
Nice.
Was the plug for that, or why I went back and watched that one, and because nobody else had anything they wanted to do that week. So yeah, not our first time in the Daredevil camp, but yeah, this is the new MCU. I mean, they've all been MCU. This is the Feige, produced version, I guess.
Yeah.
Because the other one was Marvel Television, which was different from the Marvel Films line of stuff last time around. But
Before Feige's overall takeover of the Marvel brand.
It is still both Daredevil shows have been under the Disney umbrella of things. It's not this was still from pre-Disney MCU or anything like that. I was no, they just were doing a different. It was pre-Disney Plus, so
yeah.
they did things on Netflix. But yeah, there was always tension there between the TV series and the films. Hence why so few of those characters ever crossed over into anything else.
And why you will never see a recognition of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
I mean, you still get. You still got. Agent Coulson showed up in the What If.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
So yeah, that's
closest thing we're ever going to get. Probably. But yeah.
Yes, why'd we pick it? Because this is the new MCU thing this week. It was all a buzz. I was a few hours late to watching it because I was just busy and enjoying video games. But I before watching it, I sat down and everybody in my feed on Blue Sky had been oh my God, Daredevil's back. And I was cool, looking forward to it. Before we get into the rest of the history, did you watch all of the Daredevil Netflix stuff? Because I realized I never went back for the third season. I watched the first two seasons. I don't even think I watched Defenders because Iron Fist basically burnt me out on all the Netflix stuff. So
Accurate,
I just didn't go back Jessica Jones season 2, and I never went back and watched.
Iron Fist really killed the momentum that Netflix Marvel had going for it. I still think Luke Cage suffers from just
Luke Cage got rid of their Mahershala Ali too soon,
way too soon,
and then kind of wanes in the back half of that season.
The tension that really sold early Luke Cage season 1 loses it when Mahershala Ali's Cottonmouth gets killed, and nothing really fills that void, and everything they attempt to just doesn't work. And it's unfortunate because Luke Cage is good. Jessica Jones season 1 is fantastic. I think it has one of the best. David Tennant in that is one of the best villains you could have ever asked for.
Yeah, I mean, arguably, I would probably consider David Tennant a top 5 MCU villain.
I think so,
because we get so much time with him compared to so many other villains.
Sure,
MCU already has a villain problem in general, but at that point, I remember saying at the time it was the only villain that has gotten anywhere near this amount of screen time is Loki, and David Tennant's Purple Man gets 5 times as much screen time as Loki does over the Thor films to that point. So yeah, it was I would say he's up there with your Killmongers and your Thanoses and Loki, obviously.
Absolutely. I think it's also just because he's so fascinating as a villain because there is a twisted, warped, disgusting innocence to his character. In that he's a borderline sociopathic, goes full sociopathic by the end of it for sure. But there's a logic that he lives by that is just a gross violation of everyone around him at all times, and it's really calling him the Purple Man is perfect because he is that childish of a character, but it's so dark and twisted. It's like Lord of the Flies, and like this twisted look at childlike mentality, and just done to the nth degree, and him having the ultimate like. Anyway, this isn't his show. This isn't Jessica Jones, but like Jessica Jones as like, I'm the toughest, like I'm one of the toughest people out there, but my weakness is this guy can just tell me what to do. And there's something beautiful about that. Iron Fist just really killed the momentum. I was really hot on Iron Fist for most of the season, but by the time it ended, I was just like, I'm just done.
Yeah, I liked like the supporting cast of Iron Fist. I hated Danny Rand and the performer.
I kept wanting to see him grow into this role a little bit better, but he never really changed substantively. I don't know. Word here being like he just like the substance of the character never grew.
Yeah.
And he just stayed like a doe-eyed idiot the entire time. And I'm like, this is dumb. I don't like you as a character. Which sucks because Danny Rand, the Iron Fist, as a character in other mediums, is awesome. So it just sucks that this performance just, and also like the script wasn't there for it either. Yeah.
I mean, it also has the problem, I think even in other forms, you have this weird like cultural appropriation problem in this day and age compared to when the character was first coming up and stuff like that.
Definitely was like a Lawrence of Arabia type character when he debuted, but there has been such a growth of that character in the comics that it just felt like they were kind of ignoring the elephant in the room in the show. Like somebody calling him out for, hey, this is kind of appropriation would have been great. But also, yeah, I mean, there's a reason why former Swordmaster now, like the current Iron Fist is not white. Well, technically, Iron Fist is still Iron Fist. It's anyway, but don't need to get into it.
Yeah, it's whatever.
We didn't watch The Defenders. I didn't watch The Defenders. I have no idea what happens, and I didn't watch season 3 of Daredevil. I have no idea what happens.
This series, Daredevil Born Again, originally released March 4th, 2025, first 2 episodes, and then we're going to get another episode a week until April 15th for a total of 9 episodes in this first season. As we'll touch on in the trivia, it's already been greenlit for season 2, and originally it was going to be like an 18-episode season, but they ended up splitting that after some of the production difficulties. But the 2 episodes thus far, I remember, like I sat down and was like, "Ooh, first episode's an hour, then another 50 minutes. We're getting a Daredevil movie tonight as the premiere." So shout out to that. In the MCU TV timeline, is just copying kind of what we talked about a couple weeks ago when we did Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. But back at the end of 2023, we had What If Season 2. Then we had Echo, which does get a little bit of a nod here. January 10th of 2024. Agatha All Along, September through October 2024. What If Season 3 in December of last year. Then we had Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man in January and February this year. Daredevil Born Again, March through April. Up next on the docket is Ironheart, debuting in June, followed by Eyes of Wakanda, August 6th, Marvel Zombies in October, and Wonder Man in December. Our roll call, the who's who of the project. For these 2 episodes, we have, for the first episode, Heaven's Half Hour, was directed by Aaron Moorhead and Justin Benson. They are a directing duo that previously also worked on a couple episodes of Moon Knight, as well as 4 episodes of Loki, I believe season 2 specifically. Then the second episode is directed by Michael Cuesta for the Optics episode, who previously worked in TV on shows like 6 Feet Under, Dexter, Homeland, and Dopesick. And then our writers for the Heaven's Half Hour episode, we have that written by Dario Scardapine, or I don't know how his last name is pronounced. But he took over as the showrunner. Again, I'll touch on this a little bit in the trivia. But he took over in large part because of his work as a writer on The Punisher Netflix series. But then also he has worked on the Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan series with not Jim Halpert, John Krasinski. It's like, why is his name blanking me? And then this is interesting because the second episode, Optics, is credited to Matt Corman and Chris Ord, who are the original showrunners that got let go from the show.
Yeah.
Their other biggest kind of writing credit prior to this was they were co-creators of a series called Covert Affairs, which ran for like 70 some odd episodes, I think. So yeah, it's interesting that like these two episodes are still like a mashed together byproduct of, okay, they had one direction for the show, and then Disney was like, we're not going to go that direction. Let's retool everything, but also still work with some of the stuff that had already been shot and filmed and stuff. So we'll touch on that a little bit more in a bit. The cast of characters includes, of course, a returning Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock, who I am always a fan of, going back to Stardust.
Absolutely.
He's also in The Theory of Everything. He's been Daredevil since 2015, up to and including Spider-Man No Way Home and She-Hulk, and now Daredevil Born Again. And we have a brief return here from Deborah Ann Woll as Karen Page, who returning from her work in the Daredevil Netflix series of things. She's also in True Blood, Catch 44. She had her own actual D&D actual play series, Force Grey, on Nerdist back in the day. And then she was in God of War Ragnarok a couple years back, notably as Atreus' mother. Then we have, again, a brief return for Eldon Henson here as Foggy Nelson, who got his start back as Fulton in The Mighty Ducks, which is always just one of those like, oh, that's wild that was him. He was also in Idle Hands, The Butterfly Effect, and The Hunger Games Mockingjay. Vincent D'Onofrio also returning as Wilson Fisk, having worked on things like Full Metal Jacket, Ed Wood, Men in Black, Law & Order Criminal Intent, Jurassic World. And then on the video game side of things, he was in Dishonored 2, which is always just funny to me. And of course, he's been Wilson Fisk / Kingpin since 2015. Then in our new cast of folks, we have Margarita Levieva as Heather Glenn, who's previously in projects like Adventureland and The Lincoln Lawyer, as well as the series Revenge. She's also in The Acolyte. I believe she was the mother of the girls in The Acolyte, or one of the mothers of the girls. Camar de los Reyes as Hector Ayala was in the soap opera One Life to Live, and then he played seemingly a relatively well-known character in Call of Duty Black Ops 2, given that his character returned in a handful of the follow-ups like Call of Duty Black Ops 4 and Vanguard and stuff like that, as I'm guessing like a DLC character or something, or skin or something like that. But he was also recently in Indiana Jones and the Great Circle as well, those being a few of his last roles, because unfortunately he passed after his filming on this series due to, I believe, cancer. The second episode, I believe, is dedicated to him.
It is.
We have Nikki M. James as Kirsten McDuffie, previously in projects like The Good Wife and Severance. Janaea Walton as BB Ulrich in the series #BlackAF, as well as Never Have I Ever and Candy Cane Lane. Michael Gandolfini, in addition to being James Gandolfini's son, he's playing Daniel Blake here. He was in The Many Saints of Newark as a young Tony Soprano, as well as last year's Bob Marley One Love. And then one last little returning character who I didn't know was a returning character because I didn't watch season 3 of Daredevil, but Wilson Bethel did reprise his role from season 3 of Daredevil as Benjamin Poindexter, aka Bullseye. So we get him heavily.
This made me want to watch season 3. Seeing him as Bullseye, I was like,
definitely seems like really a violent fit for the Netflix stuff. Yeah, he was also in the Heart of Dixie series.
Okay.
Yep, like going back pre any of the Netflix stuff, obviously. Some trivia. So yes, as touched on before, it was announced on October 23rd, 2023, that Kevin Feige and the other Marvel executives watched the first few episodes during the writers and actors strikes of 2023 and did not like what they saw, so they fired the original writers and directors. And so the result seems to be a blend of kind of the work that had been done before, as well as new stuff. Namely, the first episode was entirely new, and then by replacement showrunner Dario Scardapine and directors Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead. But then, as I said, the second episode created to the original creative team, Matt Corman and Chris Ord as the writers, and Michael Cuesta's direction. It is the only episode looking ahead, at least according to Wikipedia, that is credited to Corman and Ord. So we'll see. But Michael Cuesta also, directs the next episode that we'll get. So not a full kind of pulling of the original crew and direction. The first episode, especially with like the rumors at the time that like, no, this was going to be, apart from bringing back Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio, this was going to be like a fresh start for Daredevil. So the first episode does seem to be like, let's bridge the gap between the old series and the new one, and bring back Karen and Foggy so that we can write them out of the show and not just like start from nothing.
It was supposed to, I was reading about this online at lunch. I was like, oh wow, I can't believe they didn't have that incredible first scene. Yeah. They're like, yeah, it was done off. It was going to, like, the director was like, yeah, they wrote him off. And I was like, that just doesn't feel right. Charlie Cox had an interesting look at Foggy as a character, as like the quote unquote heartbeat of the MCU. But
yeah, he's been saying that a lot in interviews. I'm like, I feel like I watched one in particular where he's like, it's been argued that he's, the heartbeat of the MCU. I'm like, by you? Because you're the only other person I've ever seen say anything like that.
Like, listen, I will be a Foggy apologist to a certain extent, but I will not agree with that term. Granted, I don't know if that was also meant to be like a sick pun on the scene, in the intro scene to when Foggy dies. So, I felt like...
Which does heavily feature his heartbeat. So, maybe that's actually just been a joke that he's been playing on everything. Of like, a little
he
joke. Could say that in a non-spoiler context, and it has a much greater reverberations if you have seen the first 15 minutes.
Yeah, I think I will, when we get into it, I want to talk about that, a lot of it. It's crazy they weren't going to do this.
Yeah.
Thinking that, so you would just see her at the court, I guess. It's the first time you see her, and she's like, she's in San Francisco.
Karen? No, she also would not have returned.
Not even for any of that. Oh my gosh.
No, they basically... Yeah, the whole first episode, like,
it's true. Okay,
is the only time we see her. So yeah, they brought them back, and they brought them back so they could include them in all like the pre-marketing stuff. It's also like none of that stuff surprised me given the trailers we'd seen, where it's like, okay, it seems like they're barely in it, in the same way that like there's one person in the Thunderbolts, I'm like, I'm pretty sure you're getting killed pretty quickly in that movie. Or the way Slipknot in the Suicide Squad was like in one scene and then not in the rest of the trailer.
I think looking back at it, I didn't really pay attention to too much about it. I was like, oh, trailer looks cool, but I didn't like analyze it or anything. But looking at it now, it's like, okay, I think you really need that. You really need that to set off. And I think that was the right decision completely then.
Yeah. Some additional trivia points here. Going back to kind of the creative shakeup. According to Wikipedia, 3 new episodes were written, including the new pilot episode, as well as additional scenes for previously shot episodes. So it was a mix of brand new stuff as well as stitching together whatever work had already been done. I think it was like I think the other 6 episodes had already been kind of done. So Optics is probably one that was already done and created, and they basically wrote around it, added some new scenes to it to fit within the other changes that they'd made. It'll be interesting to see, like, it wasn't particularly noticeable in term, like, there are some things where I'm like, I feel like this is a bit of a tonal shift between, because the rumor is that like the original or the other version was going to be basically a departure from like the darker, gritty Netflix style. And basically they were like, no, we want to bring the darker, gritty Netflix style back in. But I mean, like, well, the departure was like, well, that's fitting in like the Daredevil that we already saw in She-Hulk. So it's like, I think that could have also worked.
Sure.
A lighter version of the character. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see as the show moves forward if you can kind of tell where things were stitched together or not.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yes. In February 2025, Scartapina, Benson, and Moorhead were confirmed to already be returning for season 2. Back at D23. And then I pulled together a few little nods to the previous series, largely from that first episode that is kind of intended to bridge the gap. But we have Josie's Bar, including Susan Varon back as Josie, was the regular hangout spot for Matt, Foggy, and Karen in the original series. Foggy name drops Hogarth, Chow, and Benowitz, referencing Carrie Ann Moss's character, Jerry Hogarth, from the Netflix verse of shows. Bibi Urick is introduced and confirmed as the niece of season 1 character Ben Urick.
Great, I loved it. That moment is so freaking good.
Yeah.
If you like, because I remember that death scene vividly still, because it was so brutally violent. In the most like
him very nonchalantly saying like, I knew your father, instead of like, oh, I'm the one who killed your father. Yeah.
It's interesting because I'm like, does she know that he, like, maybe not, but I just love that aspect of
not
it.
Father,
like,
sorry, uncle.
Or uncle, yeah. I was named after my uncle.
Yeah.
And it's Ben Urich. Oh wow.
Yeah.
That his look on his face is like the sins of my past are directly sitting in front of me, asking me some questions I don't want to answer. It's perfect.
In the kind of confrontation scene between Matt and Fisk, we get about your friend. I had nothing to do with his death. I kept that promise, referencing the pact that Fisk and Matt made to not target each other's loved ones in the previous series. And then, of course, we have Fisk's line, "We don't need a gun-toting vigilante who wears a skull on his chest," Punisher, or a man who dresses in a spider outfit, Spider-Man, or a guy who wears devil horns, Daredevil, of course. Mild spoilers for the future of the season, but it has also been confirmed that John Bernthal is coming back as Punisher at some point. So,
Yep.
I didn't call him out in the credits there because we haven't seen him yet, but presumably, unless that is like a red herring casting notice or something like that, we'll presumably see him back. The fact that we get him name dropped specifically, like, I don't expect to see Spider-Man as cool as that would be, to see Spider-Man team up with Daredevil and against Mayor Fisk especially.
That'd be sick as hell. Actually, I would
be a great little thing.
Debut that new Spider-Man outfit that he had at the end of No Way Home.
Yeah. But the fact that like one of the corrupt cops has like seemingly a distorted Punisher tattoo on his wrist.
I read online somewhere that that's like a plot line in I think season 3 of Daredevil. Or like in the Defenders or something. It's supposed to be like
the Punisher, because the Punisher
show or the
did
Punisher
take place
show.
in
Yeah,
this
it's
universe.
like
That's another one. I started to watch Punisher and it got too violent for me. So I walked away from it.
Yeah, I couldn't go. I was just Marvel showed out at that point, so I never went to watch it. But from what I understand, the distorted Punisher tattoo is like a sign of like a group of corrupt cops.
Yeah, yeah,
like violent, terrible cops.
Basically, they're like,
as we saw.
Oh, we like that he, is violent vigilante and doesn't have to, abide by the law. So we'll go ahead and do the corrupt cop things that we do already. And
justify it that
a line
way.
Behind that, yeah.
Yeah, I believe that's kind of the idea behind it.
Yeah.
As we see with real life cops that use the Punisher.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I had for the trivia here. I'm sure there are other, nods and Easter eggs that are out there, but I did not dig through all of the, like, here are the 93 Easter eggs that you might have missed in episodes 1 and 2, because most of those are just nonsense anyway. Or it's all like theorizing of like, here's a name that we heard off camera, and it could be any of these 3 people in the MCU that have that same name or something like
no,
that kind
we're
of
good.
nonsense. Yeah. But yeah, diving into the first couple episodes here, what did you think? And yeah, I think the obviously the biggest thing we can chat about is the first 15 minutes, the very intense kind of like, again, no, that being the only thing that I got like tipped off on a little bit beforehand in terms of like, holy shit, those first 15 minutes of the new Daredevil's back, like seeing that on social feeds and stuff like that, I was like, okay, I'm going to strap in and pay attention to this. I'm not going to like throw this on while I'm playing something else. I'm going to actually focus my attention on the series. And so much so that like there were some things where I had seen violence in the trailers and been like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to actually be able to like stick this out. And when those violent moments happened up, in particular, the fight in the second episode where they break the guy's arm like underneath the shirt, I was like, oh, yep, I forgot about that. Oh God, gross. But yeah, the opening sequence, very impactful, but also immediately like with this sense of, especially like maybe not. If I had gone in not knowing the casting reports and the rumors and stuff like that,
if you went in like me,
yeah, it very much could have been, oh, like, cool, we're picking up where we left off. Interesting to see. But like for me, coming in with like those little bits of rumors and stuff like that, and having not seen too much of Karen and Foggy in the trailers, and seeming like that the show's taking a different direction, I definitely was like, one of you ain't walking out of this opening. And it had like this whole aura of ominous behavior. And so as soon as like Foggy gets that call from like his frantic CI or whatever he's got in the stash house, I was like, oh, Foggy gonna die.
I did not know that. I did not know any of that. I was like, oh, cool. I thought they would just have like a smaller like side role, and it was going to be dealing with Matt more on the street maybe or something. Because I heard like, they weren't really going to be in it. But my assumption was just like, minimal screen time was what I thought was going to happen.
Yeah.
So when you see Bullseye, and here's the thing, as a comic book fan, I know that was Bullseye the moment that he stopped to screw in the light bulb.
I mean, does that? I feel like that happens after he has already killed a fly with a paperclip, right?
Accurate. Yeah. Sorry.
So that's when I knew it was Bullseye.
Yeah. That's really what it was for me. I'm like, oh, is that Bullseye?
He picks a lock, and then you see a fly on a light bulb, and the paperclip that he used to pick the lock.
My thought is like, oh, that must be Bullseye, and then, but for me, what really confirmed it is like Bullseye is OCD.
Yeah.
So he has to fix that, and I'm like, that's one of the things I love about Bullseye as a character is his greatest flaw is he's a perfectionist. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not a superpower that he can hit any target. He's just that obsessed with hitting his target. And that's why when he misses you, he gets, like, he's nuts. Because he's crazy. As somebody who has, obsessive compulsive disorder, it's like kind of seeing like the villain version of like me without my meds. Not so much, but kind of. It's fun to see a character whose power is he's just super obsessed. Mm-hmm. And his weakness too. Like, it's great. But yeah, I was like, oh, this is Bullseye. I was like, I knew they did Bullseye in the show and I wasn't watching it in season 3. So I knew that Bullseye existed in this universe. And I'm like, ooh, I kind of dig this. And then we get later like the baklava over the face, this gun. And I'm just like, is he like getting ready to shoot? Because we see Matt is leaping across building to building, mm-hmm. rooftop to rooftop.
Yeah. And the guy, when Matt hears the guy say like, I'm sorry, he wanted to know where you were. It's like, oh yeah, Foggy's dead.
Yep. That's when I was like, oh my God, he's going to shoot Foggy. I was like, what's going to happen? And then he gets shot. I was like, oh my gosh. And then 2 other people get shot. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Here we go. I thought it was one of the detective. I thought it was going to be him that was out there.
Oh, Cherry. Oh, I forgot to include him. In the casting. I'll look up the guy's name. But I remember he popped up. I was like, what have I seen you in? What do I know you from? He was in Alpha House, the one of the like original first couple of Amazon Prime shows.
Oh wow!
It was like
okay.
Alpha House and Betas. Like Alpha House was the John Goodman one.
Yes.
Where they were like 4 senators all living in a house together in DC, and he was one of the other senators.
Yeah.
Okay. Thing I jumped.
Yeah. No. But yeah, I was like, oh well, I thought that was a death flag because he said, oh, I'm retiring. He's retired. I was like,
yeah,
this is he's gonna die too.
Yeah. It very much has that like I got one more day on the force vibe.
The fact that Foggy, what I really liked about it, I was like, oh man, I forgot how Foggy can be like endearingly dumb about like. He's overconfident about his own like capability to do things that isn't practicing the law. Like he's a pretty good lawyer. He's really good at the research and stuff, which I loved about Daredevil season 1 and 2. Is it delves into like Foggy's actually a really good, capable lawyer when it comes to like motions and briefs and stuff like that. Matt's the presentation person, but Foggy is like the paperwork guy. And I love it because that's from the comic books directly as well. And so I love that aspect of it. And so when he's talking to I forgot her name, the character's name, but he's
Kirsten McDuffie.
Yeah, when he's talking to McDuffie, and he's just like, I'm not going to tell you my I'm not going to tell you my argument and like whatnot. The flirtatious behavior between them, I was like, oh, okay, I'm kind of digging this.
He's also, of course, in The Wire. He's Gus in The Wire.
Gus in The Wire.
The city editor in the later seasons.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then then it's like the moment he's like, he wanted me to tell you where you are, and I was like, oh no. And then he gets shot, and Karen's out there, and I'm like, oh no, but no, she doesn't get shot.
There for a second there, Clark Johnson is the actor's name, who's in The Wire and Alpha House, and is here as Cherry. There was when there was a moment there again, like me going, okay, are they going to go like super dark? And,
right.
And it being Bullseye, is he going to shoot Karen through Foggy and just take both of them out in one go?
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. Well, Foggy goes down, and then you hear it, and then they start doing one of my favorite things that has ever been done in any Marvel any Marvel thing ever, maybe in anything, the heartbeat. Mm-hmm. And it's like at some point, it's like Matt forgets about Foggy's heartbeat, but then it comes back, and like Karen's holding his trying to keep doing chest compressions to keep his heart going, and it's his heartbeat that just dwindles as Matt's getting more and more exhausted.
I would need to go back and rewatch it. I don't think he ever forgets about it. I think it's
there. Not forgets about
always there underneath. It's overwhelmed.
It's overwhelmed by
all
everything else. I apologize. I think you're right.
Yeah, but it when things quiet down on the rooftop, especially, and you hear how slow it is, and he hears it come to an end. Well,
I thought also his heart stopped for a minute, and then you see Karen holding his heart and doing chest compressions. Mm-hmm. And so my other thought was oh, did his heart stop there for a moment, and now it's back? We need to rewatch it. I'm gonna rewatch it.
I mean, well, she's holding his chest to try and keep the blood in.
Yeah.
I don't think she ever does chest compression.
Okay,
and
I might be misremembering it too.
The heartbeat slowly over the course of that fight.
Oh yeah. Gets slower
and slower, and then it finally ends halfway through a beat, basically. It finally does one last pump, and that's when Matt screams and just throws Bullseye off the roof.
Well, first it's Foggy, the last, the air leaving you hear the air leaving his lungs.
Yeah.
As that last pump, and then and eyes glaze over, and Karen's just distraught. And Matt's up there, and Bullseye's bloodied up, and it's over.
Matt also has half a dozen knives in his chest.
True, yeah.
It's a brutal fight.
It's such a good fight.
It is a great throwback to the iconic fights of the Netflix show.
Yeah.
The thing that it was known for above all else was the hallway fights. It did the hallway fight better than
long panning fights.
Yeah, better than the. First season I think it was the hallway fight. Then there's the stairwell fight in season 2.
Yep. There's always one or two fights that are just that great.
Yeah.
And it's because it's far panned out. All the stuff they do with it is fantastic because you see it's all done as one shot.
Yeah.
When Matt is in tears crying, and he's just holding Bullseye, and Bullseye's just and. It's just as it just that stops, and it's just not let's go, throws. Mm-hmm. He launches him, and we see Bullseye. I was like, oh my gosh, and they're killing Bullseye off, and it's nope. Opens his eyes
yeah.
Oh,
they could have gone either way with it. I imagine they didn't because we'll probably see him continue to be a presence or something like that.
And I think that was the right move. I think keeping him, because it gives us that court scene later, which is just so powerful.
Yeah.
But one of the things I love is the last thing Foggy says to Matt is, I just didn't want to give you an excuse to put on to go do it again.
Yeah.
To be Daredevil.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to give you that excuse. And that obviously sits with Matt. Yeah. It's so good. That's the last conversation they have is Matt exasperated because Foggy didn't tell him something. It's not there's no heartfelt goodbye. There's no there's no last words of inspiration. It's a very real, real life way that a lot of times it's you didn't know that was going to be the last conversation you ever had with somebody.
Yeah.
And it is, and when he's just he tears off his mask, and it's in tears. Cherry comes up at that perfect moment. Matt, like beat for beat, those opening 15 minutes are perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I adore whether it's Bullseye, who's like, he's like, I can't get a shot on Daredevil, so I'm gonna hit somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Like throwing cue balls.
Yeah, just not like just beating the shit out of people in the hall with
kills a dude straight in the hall, just like and then kills the wife after, like brutal, absolutely brutal. And it's like, yeah, Matt can't stop to go back to Foggy because Bullseye's murdering people still.
I don't. I'd have to go back and catch the court scene stuff. I don't think he kills those other people in the hall. I think he just incapacitates them.
Does he? Okay.
Because I think they say. Like,
I think he
killed
11...
Foggy and 2 other people.
Oh, does it? Okay.
And it's the 2 people that he shot.
Okay.
Beginning. I think that's what it was.
I thought he killed 11 people. I thought they said he killed 11 people.
Maybe. Okay. Yeah.
If it is 11 people, that's a great, like, okay. But if it's just 3, still awful.
Yeah.
I mean,
they definitely looked fucked up.
Yeah. Nobody's okay walking out of that. But yeah, no, it's like that perfect moment. And at that point I was like, oh man, this has me feeling the way season 1 Daredevil had me feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Like this has me feel. I'm like, when was Marvel this good? Like, when was the last time Marvel was this damn good? Yeah, phenomenal opening 15 minutes, and then afterwards we see 1 year later.
Yeah, we see the it's like the Marvel time jump, but also to almost emphasize the how slowly the wheels of justice turn.
Yeah.
Is that like a year later is when Foggy's finally getting the day in court kind of thing, and Matt's there.
He has his remembrance card from his funeral still, which I love, has Braille on it. Like, perfect.
Of course. Yeah.
And of course he carries it around with him like it's a like a rosary or like a prayer card or something. He's carrying it around with him at all times. I'm like, I love that aspect of it. And then we see him. He's now at a nicer law firm, and
we get like he makes his like impassioned, effectively
his
attorney
victim
plea.
Yeah, well, it's his victim statement basically, and he says like, there is no justice that we can get here today.
Yeah,
because and it's like, it's a heartbreaking scene. And you just have Bullseye just staring him down. And then you have Karen walk in. He hears her footsteps. Yeah.
There's I feel like, having not seen season 3, I feel like it strikes me as like, it seems like they had to have had a scene where like Bullseye and Daredevil know who each other are. Where Bullseye knows who Daredevil is, but obviously like they wouldn't allow him to be making this statement in court if the court knew he was Daredevil and stuff like that.
Yes.
So I feel like his identity, and because there was also that moment where Cherry sees him without the mask on, and so like now knows Daredevil's identity, but obviously has kept his mouth shut and
he retired that day, so he didn't feel honor bound as a cop to turn him in,
and also the guy's paying him to be his private detective, so.
Which is funny because he's like, I'm gonna retire upstate, and it's like, nope, you didn't retire upstate, you stuck around for Matt, and now you're his. I love how calls him his hatchet man.
Yeah,
I'm like, that's great, but I love it. It's because he tells him like, Matt, I like who you've been this last year.
Yeah,
like you've been like. Matt's making the quote unquote right decision by letting justice take its turn, as slow as it is. He's letting, like when the judge says, with the district card you had for life, I have no sympathy for you whatsoever. Consecutive life sentences, you're going away for life. The moment he gets like a yes, I have justice at that point. It's like, I like how they're validating it. It's like, yes, you let the wheels of justice turn, and here we go. You're there as a defense attorney to pick up the slack. You find that your case happens that way. It's all great.
But it's also obviously not. As he says, it's not justice. It's and so it's also immediately undercut by the fact that he shows no remorse. Like the Poindexter shows no remorse and basically has nothing, to say in his defense. And also is undercut by Karen showing back up in his life after having been written off to San Francisco.
Which I dig. I think that's great. Like, yeah, no, that's a traumatic experience. I understand that she's not there anymore.
She has had a lot of traumatic experiences in New York City. Probably doesn't want to be around there anymore.
Reasonable and understandable.
And then we skipped over it, but one of the other best highlights there in the opening was the opening going into the opening sequence, the animated sequence. As like the mask falls, we see the CG stuff, and one of the things on the mask falling was the missing horn. And so I like that Karen brings that back, like, hey, I found this, and gives it back to him after he's seemingly not been Daredevil for a year.
And I think it's interesting too, because they talk about how crime's worse.
Yeah, crime's bad.
Half the force retired, so they're undermanned.
Yeah, there's also the I love the interpersonal stuff of like he was obviously in so much hurting that he couldn't be there for Karen.
Yeah.
And then when he was ready to try and heal, she'd moved away, and so
he's also hurt by that.
Him. So there's they hurt each other in there, and I don't know where their like relationship ended up. We get the little like tease when Matt's like, hey, you want to get out of here, and she's like, I forget who initiates. One of them's like, you want to get out of here, and the other's like, well, that would violate the friend code or whatever,
the friend rule.
So
I think they ended up as basically, hey, we know we care about each other, but if we're gonna be partners, etc., we can't be in a relationship. And I think them not being there for each other. Also the idea that Foggy was this thing kind of keeping the three of them together.
He was the heartbeat.
He was the heartbeat of
the MCU.
It's so fascinating to see this aspect of it. And then it's juxtaposed by freaking Wilson Fisk, like making good on his vision to become mayor of New York City. And knowing who Eric Adams is currently our real life one, maybe wouldn't be
we get all sorts of Trump allegory in here,
so much
despite the fact that this was obviously filmed well before the election. It's still like, even then it was like, okay, yeah, we get how like a corrupt populist with a lot of like baggage, people will still vote for that guy, and it'll be close, and they'll only get like half the vote, but they'll get enough because our system's broken, and so there's plenty of that. Still in this first episode, while Fisk is kind of doing his rise to power and stuff,
he touches the white suit, then moves over to his charcoal gray, and it's like he like Daredevil, he too has put up the persona. He's Wilson Fisk, politician.
Yeah.
Goes to Vanessa and says, I need to get your confirmation that your operations are buttoned up clean, so tight that we're clean, that I'm clean. Like nothing can get back to me. And she gives him that confirmation, and he goes, okay. And then he's like, because I've been told we have the 25,000 signatures. When he says that, I was like, oh, we are like really starting out on it. Okay. But we get like that beautiful time. Like,
I mean, there was already like, because we already have like reports at that point of like there are 13 candidates in the race, so it's like it's already a shit show, and like nobody's really
it's a recall election as well. So it's pulling also from like California's recall where they had like 15 candidates that got Schwarzenegger elected.
Yep. But I think the standout apart from kind of the opening 15 minutes is that scene in the diner between Fisk and Matt.
I have to tell you, it's not entirely unpleasant. Yeah. That, and it's like, oh, it isn't, because at one point they start joking with each other.
Yeah, I mean, they're talking about how they miss things in the town or in the city, like
Jenny's diner.
They missed the diner that used to be there or something like that. I've never been here. But they I love how in that scene they're sizing each other up to gauge like sincerity around, obviously like Daredevil's is much more public of like has not been running around at night, so and Fisk knows that, But Matt trying to gauge, like, is he sincere about wanting to help New York, or is he just doing it for some,
What's the
unseen
plan?
power grab? What's the play here? What can I get from you that I can't gather elsewhere?
Yeah, and it's interesting to see them both kind of like lay their cards on the table. Because we know from watching Echo, we know that Echo did some stuff that kind of like took away part of like the sociopathic machine that was Wilson Fisk's mind and gave him an inspiration to quote unquote be better.
Mm-hmm.
And it's awesome to see like there is a weird level of
that is
sincerity.
something I could completely forgotten until you just mentioned it.
Oh yeah.
So they probably could have done a better job of like they give a little bit of lip service to like, I tried to mentor someone, it didn't work out.
Oh, did she shoot you in the face?
Yeah.
They start laughing. It's like, and he goes, the younger generation. And it's like, gosh, okay.
But I had completely forgotten that like healing moment at the end of Echo.
Well, it's when he because also Vanessa brings up, like, you left. Like, I was by your bedside every day, and then you got up and left and didn't tell me where you were going. And it's like, because he went to go confront Echo, and it was... I still think the Wilson Fisk Echo scenes in Echo are really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, Vincent D'Onofrio just elevates those scenes so highly. And, like, we were okay on Echo. Like, Echo's totally fine.
Yeah.
But the Wilson Fisk moments, her healing Wilson, at least trying to, inadvertently also causing him now to, like, potentially put himself in, like, the most dangerous position a man like Wilson Fisk could be in, as far as like to the rest of New York City.
Yeah.
It's so fascinating to see, like, there is a push for, I want to do good. So I'm not wearing the white suit. I'm wearing a regular suit. I don't have any, like, Vanessa's running the business. I'm not doing a thing with it. There is he does show up to emphasize I still control, which is still his thing because he's a villain. His villain stuff is still there. But then we get into like episode 2. Anyway, so that diner scene is just so brilliant because they both, cards on the table, we've both quote unquote hung up the suit.
Yeah.
We are both trying to do quote unquote better. And it really does end up with like some really, hey, we're both going to try to do this growth thing. And Matt meets a doctor who is told, oh, she's a client, go meet her at a coffee shop. I was like, that's weird, but okay. And then like, oh, well, you're here for a patient, right? And he goes, and it's like, I freaking love that.
I mean, obviously, like they go this route very quickly, so it becomes very apparent. But when they first have their miscommunication, I read it as not that she was setting her up on a date, or not that they were setting them up on a date, so much as, hey, like,
she was trying to get therapy.
I don't think you've processed Foggy's death, and I think you need to see somebody about that. So I thought that was where it was coming from.
Initially, I thought that too, but then they started actually getting along, and I was like, okay. And then afterwards, when he's at the office, he goes, by the way, not cool.
Yeah.
Not cool. Text me her number.
Give me
not
her number.
Cool.
Yeah.
Love that aspect of it. And I love that it's one of the things she says later when they're on a date. He goes, oh, well, that doesn't sound like very like strange. She goes, well, because I'm your girlfriend. I'm your girlfriend, not your doctor.
I'm not your doctor. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, I love that right there. Tells us we've established boundaries in our relationship. I'm like, that's good. This is good. I'm digging this. I love seeing Matt kind of like, I'm in love. Like, I'm in love. And I like, life is okay.
Yeah. Except that we also get a couple scenes of like seeming threats at her book signing. We get like the kid who seems to be troubled,
disturbed,
looking for her, and then
I think that might have been a red herring because then the person who shows up after him is Fisk's aide.
I don't think we've seen the last of that kid.
Maybe not. I don't think so. But I think it could be red herring. Could go what I think we were thinking of.
I don't think it's needed if it doesn't play more important.
I think that's fair.
Because we get the moment of the aide basically being like there.
Oh, this is where it could be this could be the red herring. She dies probably due to Fisk. And they frame that disturbed guy for her killer, and then Matt has to defend him in court because he knows he's telling the truth. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I feel like we wouldn't need to do that because we're already doing that with the Hector storyline.
Accurate, yeah. That's also, I think that's fair.
Yeah. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where it all goes and where we play out. But yeah, then we do get the introduction of the Hector character, which I had to go back and like rewatch because there were just basically initially like a few faces that were new to me, and I didn't pick up immediately. Like, wait, who's the good guy here? Who's the bad guy? What's going on here? And it being like Hector, who we don't know is, you know, a vigilante at the time or anything like that, but basically just like seems to be a guy who sees another guy in trouble, being, you know, attacked by a couple guys, steps up, they get into a fight. One guy brutally gets decimated by a subway train, and then the other guy finally announces himself as a police officer, clearly of the corrupt variety. Amazingly doesn't just shoot him there, I guess, is really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Like, that's the, like, all right, why? We already know you're a bad cop. You were roughing up some guy. Your partner just got destroyed by a train. Like,
oh yeah, crazy. By the way,
I don't believe for a second that you have the restraint in this moment to not kill him, especially where we see him, you know, immediately ready to go and hunt down the witness in the second episode. Like this dude's definitely just like a shitbag right out the gate. But if he did kill him, we wouldn't have the rest of the series, I'm sure. So, but yeah, then in Cherry's kind of investigation finds that he is the White Tiger.
So cool.
Well,
first he talks about
in the first episode.
I love how she's like, does he even have a chance? And Cherry's like, I'm going to be honest with you. The police machine, when it gets moving, it doesn't stop for anybody. And it's moving. Like, he goes, the best shot you have are these lawyers, but like, you should know this is a machine that does not care.
Yeah.
One of their own has died, and when that happens, this machine gets turned on and it does not stop for anybody. And I'm like, that is refreshing. Refreshing to see, like, here, like, I'm going to be honest with you.
Spoken by an authority on the subject who's probably been on that side of the equation a couple times.
And seeing him be, like, he doesn't see it as, like, a cab, like, political. It's like, this is a machine. And when something happens that turns it on, that's it. It's so detached from a moral compass aspect of it that we normally see with police corruption and stuff like that, or like just the police thin blue line machinery, so to speak, about like the aspect of a cop killer case like this. Seeing such an emotion, like a detached, I wouldn't say it's emotionless, but a detached, like matter of fact observation of, like, because we always hear, especially in New York, the quote unquote the machines, the political machine, the like. These machines that once they don't care about the people inside of them, they just move and move and move, whether it's bureaucracy or you know, systemic injustice. Like, these are things that just get set in motion, and don't have mechanisms to stop them. Yeah,
well, like what was it, a few months back? Like a guy who basically got a death sentence by the cops for a $2, you know, $3 fare skip or something like that.
Yeah,
and got gunned down.
And like, what was the investigation happened? Cop was like totally innocent. Despite the fact that the cop shot other people, as well. It's like, well, it's like, there are shield laws, there are protections. These things are police are systemically protected from any real consequences of their actions. And it's not because, it's like this system has set out to protect them, and it is a machine, and they will protect them. It's very much that aspect of it. If you want to take it, like, you want to take off the moral lenses and just look at it as a matter of fact. That is such a critical take on the system this guy used to be a part of, like you said. Like, really good. And then he finds this chest that has the
mystical
medallion,
mystical amulet.
Yeah. When that is said in court, seriously,
which again I think speaks to this episode has a somewhat different tone than the first episode. And so, yeah, the like just nonchalant introduction of, okay, everybody, apparently this vigilante is well enough known that people know he has a mystical amulet that gives him his like magical powers.
Well, I love it because he was not in possession of his mystical amulet at the time, and I expected the DA to be like what about? And it's like, regardless if you had it or not, I was like, oh my gosh, no, it's taking there. It's like, oh no, it's true because we're this far in the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
That these are matters of fact. She-Hulk kind of brought it up, that tone of it. Like, superheroes are a matter of fact of society at this point.
Yeah, and I mean, there is also this, like, if this does, while obviously we don't get Matt and making any kind of reference to She-Hulk, assuming that, She-Hulk does, exist in this version of the timeline of everything as well. It's like, okay, yeah, there's a lawyer out there who is, like, very much publicized as a She-Hulk who's also a lawyer. So sure, there are magical, mystical powers, and this guy happens to be one of them.
A sorcerer supreme saved the world, or like there's enough evidence out there to be like, yeah, magic's real. Like it's just a matter of fact we have to deal with.
Yeah, there is that of like the implication of Multiverse of Madness being like everybody knew that like Strange made a call that led to half the world being blipped.
Yep.
So yeah,
it's been publicized. Like people know, and also, oh yeah, Steven, how's the magic going?
Ant-Man wrote a book. And did some podcasts and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So like people know magic's real, and so when he busts that, I was like, oh my god, nope, that's fair. That's totally fair. And like, yeah, nope, that's prejudicial information. He was not in possession. He was not currently in doing vigilante things. That's not what he's on trial for. Matt is like, and the judge is like, Mr. Murdoch is correct.
Which also surprised me because he was the judge immediately being so like dismissive to anything and basically
arguments
just,
for bail.
Immediately being on the like he's a cop killer. Like I've kind of already made my call in that pre-hearing kind of thing, being like, oh, this guy's going to be a piece of shit too in the machine. Yay.
Well, especially when it comes to bail's always set against, like, especially if it's a murder trial, the chance that you're going to get bail that's not astronomically high, real hard. And the fact that the judge is like, listen, it's a cop killer case. I'm not putting him back out on the street. Like, probably also for like his protection as well. Like keeping up. And we find out in Rikers, he's not that safe either, but
yeah, of course.
It's just it's really a damned if you do, damned if you don't thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, straight up like I was surprised at that too, but he was like, no, he's right. He was not in possession of his mystical amulet. He was not acting as a vigilante. The fact that he is inadmissible and will not be mentioned. Like I'm not letting it be mentioned at trial. Mm-hmm. And you see the DA being like, first off, love that Matt is like, discovery laws are a thing. I've discovered this. I have to let the prosecution know.
Yep.
Love that. Mm-hmm. Love that. We're not hiding it. There's not going to be a Brady violation or if issues with this. Matt is a stone cold lawyer.
Yeah.
Following the law. And I love that. That was it. I saw people online be like, why didn't he just hide it? It's like, because if they found out, it's worse than if he had just been honest about it to begin with.
Yeah.
And we get that paid off here. We get to see some small wins for Matt doing the right thing as the lawyer.
Yeah, except of course, I foresee the Hawk lawyer.
The Hawk to a lawyer, yes.
Yeah. Oh goody, great. I foresee him leaking it either to the press or to Fisk, who's clearly on an anti-vigilante thing. That hey, this is a case you should be looking at. And we already get like word from like the news reporters saying like Fisk is watching this case closely.
Yep.
So as soon as he finds out that it has not one but two vigilantes involved, I think
it's this one.
He will leak to everyone else that because he doesn't care about the rule of the court at that point. He will absolutely take it to the court of public opinion.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I found is also in episode 2, we see Fisk going out. Shout out to the giant pothole that exists from No Way Home, by the way. That's the freeway. That's the freeway
it looked like it, yeah.
Yeah, it's the freeway where Spider-Man's attacked by Doc Ock.
Yeah.
Because that giant, like, he smashes that giant, and it's like, yeah, we're just going to be, it'll be like 5 minutes for us to get around the hole. And he just gets out and he goes like, I'm the mayor. You go, well, we haven't got the clear codes. Like, we haven't got the permits. I'm the mayor. You have the permits.
Yeah.
Fill this hole.
Which, again, strikingly interesting parallel to just the, today. Like, no, you don't actually have that power as the mayor.
No,
just like Trump doesn't have half the powers he's trying to implement. But if people treat him like he has those powers, it's virtually the same thing.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, the social contract is just what we agreed to, right?
Yeah.
Like, laws only exist as much as they can be enforced. And unfortunately, the guy who's breaking all the laws is the person in charge of enforcing them. So
Yeah.
we run into that dynamic of, it's as Andrew Jackson once put when the Supreme Court said he couldn't murder all the Native Americans and tear up treaties. He said, the Supreme Court has made their ruling. Now let them enforce it. But they can't. That's the point.
Yeah.
The branches of government are separated for that purpose. But if one of the branches decides not to fulfill their obligations, you have that happening.
You have...
You have our current situation.
Everything around us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when one of the bodies of government that's supposed to be standing up and making a big huff up about it is being run by a bunch of sycophants and spineless cowards.
Yep.
And I mean that on both parties.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, fuck all of them.
Sorry, didn't mean to get too modern, real life political, but
I fucking hate the world we live in these days.
Yep. But hey, let's talk about this fake world that we don't live in.
Let's go to this escapism world where we're having to be confronted with the exact same bullshit.
Because art imitates life. But yeah, no, that whole moment, it's like, yeah, Fisk gets things done, and it's like,
yeah, we get a spin-off MAGA hat. Cool, great.
Ugh.
Fisk can fix it or whatever.
Fisk can fix it. I saw that. I was like, ugh. Yeah. Listen, you don't have to convince me to hate Fisk anymore. You got it. I'm there.
The thing I love about the Fisk stuff in the second episode is his like confrontation with the
chief of police.
Is that what he's?
Yeah,
supposed
chief
to
of
be?
police.
Yeah.
That at the funeral?
At the funeral first, and then later in his office. Because the chief of police at the funeral is like, "Fuck you, man! I'm not gonna help you. I'm gonna I know you haven't turned over a new leaf or changed. So I know you're not a good guy.
Yeah,
Fuck
it's
you,
interesting.
I'm
The
not gonna
head
help
of the
you."
machine that we see is railroading this innocent person into prison, is also like standing up to Fisk, and so it's like. So it's the intersections at which Fisk and Matt's characters are like in synchronization with each other, and they cross oppositionally as much as they are crossing not working together, but in benefit of each other. Like, Matt's taking a case against the police. Fisk is having a problem with the police commissioner. The police commissioner's, and the DA's, probably going to do, like you mentioned, let Fisk know about the white tiger thing. Fisk is probably going to let that out. They're interweaving this narrative of these two characters in a way that will ultimately lead to a direct confrontation. But what that looks like, I don't know. How we get there, I don't know yet. But I know we're on this track. I know our destination. Now it's about the journey getting there. And I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah. But then I love that we get the later confrontation between the chief of police and Fisk, where Fisk basically is like, you're from Philly, right? It has like a cheesesteak. Yeah. What was your favorite place? Well, here's mine. And
it's a little outside of Philadelphia.
Yeah, and he
about 10 minutes outside of Philadelphia.
He holds up he
lifts up the thing and shows the photo.
Yeah, the photo of
his
love child,
yep.
Kind of thing, to keep him under his thumbs. Like, all right, yeah, I'll help you, but be careful what you wish for, kind of thing.
Pretty much.
Place, so I'll be curious. Yep. Like
we see the Kingpin.
Yeah.
Show up. Like, he doesn't walk into the meeting with Fisk. He walks into a meeting with the Kingpin. And this is Kingpin in the same way at the end of that episode we see Matt be Daredevil again. We're seeing Fisk be Kingpin again.
Yeah.
I'm using the nastiest, dirtiest, I'm willing to kill, and I'm telling you I know about this child that you don't want anybody to know about. What I will do with it, who's to say? It's the Kingpin method that he's using in that moment.
Yeah.
And it's It's this. The episode's called Optics because the optics are they've changed, but deep down inside they are still Kingpin and Daredevil, and that leads us into like the last part of the episode where
first before we leave the Kingpin stuff, like, oh, that was a disgusting sandwich.
Oh yeah, it's just like, ugh, disgusting sandwich.
Yeah,
and it's like, first off, man, like I get it. Also, it's probably cold. It was in Philly. Like, yeah, I get it. It was meant to be the optics of.
It was a prop.
It was a prop.
It was
not a good
to
sandwich.
Be a good sandwich.
And also, probably that place outside of Philadelphia probably sucks. So.
Yeah. Also, because we had the end of the first episode, right, where we have like Fisk looking down on the city and Matt like, looking up with like the hella great lighting and stuff.
Yeah, with the like. It's also Fisk is now in an ivory tower. He's surrounded by light and like power and that emphasis of power. And Matt's down and like a trash can is on fire. Things are getting more chaotic around him. And it's looking more like hell. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, heaven and hell, like half an hour in heaven. Like so much is happening with this. The cinematography in both these episodes has been, the first episode I think more so. Probably because I think it's more of that new director.
Mm-hmm. The duo directors.
Yeah, the new duo directors.
Yeah, the one of the shots I've seen them gushing about is the zoom in on Matt's ear that then kind of goes behind his head to Foggy outside, and they're basically like playing with Raccoon. They talk about they had like 3 cameras. That they basically stitched together that were shooting in different like aspect ratios for that to like focus in on something, then change the focus, then bring the focus back to like, okay.
Careful, you're changing the focus on your camera right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's awesome. Yeah. I think that the direction in that moment at the end of that episode is perfect. The parallels we have of like, once again, their journey, these two characters' journey is in parallel and in opposition to each other. And I'm loving that aspect, the duality of it. Because that was the best part about season 1, I felt. In season 2, I didn't feel like there was that. They kept trying to push the dynamic of like the parallels between Punisher, Daredevil, Elektra, Daredevil, but it never reaches the height of Fisk and Daredevil in their parallels, I felt. Yeah. And that's why I was like, going back for season 3, I don't think so. I'm good. At that time, back then, I that was my feeling on it. But
yeah.
And honestly, I think it's Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio just like really being meant to play these roles.
Yeah.
Like they fundamentally understand these characters to such a deep level. I will never stop being upset by how guttural and gritty Kingpin's voice is. I always expect Vincent D'Onofrio's like higher tones because I watched him in Criminal Intent for years and I expected more of that. But every time he opens his mouth, it's like deep in his voice and his register. And I'm like, it's unsettling. Yeah. Even more so now that he's not so big. Mm-hmm. Gosh, I freaking love these parallels. Love these. Like, this is why, in my opinion, Fisk, despite being a bad guy in every other New York superheroes, rogues gallery, he is a Daredevil villain to me because of this. Because it was before as well, like pre-acknowledged that he was already primarily a Daredevil villain. But really, it wasn't until season 1 I was like, wow, no, this is why Fisk needs to be the villain.
Yeah. A couple of, obviously, we also end episode 2 with Matt following the corrupt cop and then getting the tip that they have tracked down the witness and Matt's only hope for the case.
Yep. And he gets up there and he says, I need you, like, you need to go. And oh my gosh, that scene's so freaking good when the cops show up.
Yeah.
He opens the door, just lets him in.
Yep. And they show precisely how corrupt they are, that they're willing to kill the defense attorney in cold blood.
Like that one somehow tip off. Like,
yeah. Like that it is almost like there is an element of it was a perfect crime that they could frame this guy for the other guy dying because the only person who could have witnessed what happened or could speak to anything of like, oh, he was there and not just out to kill a cop, fled the scene immediately and is because he's somebody under their thumb. So they could have just like let him be in the wind, and Matt would have never been able to track that guy down.
But this is the this is the thing with criminals. And by the way, these guys are criminals because criminals get paranoid and they think I have to
clean up all loose ends.
Without realizing every time you clean up a loose end, the whole point of like, I'm cleaning up loose ends. When you try to clean up a loose end, you just create more loose ends.
Yeah.
Your action will always create like an effect that happens. And that's why a lot of criminals think, oh, I'm going to be smart by cleaning up or catching up on these loose ends or whatnot. That's what gets them in the end.
Yeah. So Matt, with a gun to his head, literally, basically has to kind of go back into Daredevil mode, purely to save his own life, really, in that moment.
But
but also seemingly takes out a lot of rage. Like, I'm pretty sure both those guys are dead at the end of that episode.
If they are not dead, I'd be surprised. But also, if they are dead, I understand. Like, he did not treat them well.
Yeah, the corrupt cop. So he breaks the one guy's arm, and it's like, okay, that guy might still be alive, but also takes a lot of blows and hits. The other guy, he throws him down, and his head bends in a not survivable kind of way.
If he survived, that man's neck is no longer in one piece.
Yeah, he's paralyzed.
Here's the thing: if they're both in a coma after this, believable, understandable, totally fine. If Matt killed them, I understand that too, because
which also is going to open up a whole nest of new problems in the future of this series and case.
I saw online somebody mentioned that they're like, when Matt's saying don't do this. Mm-hmm. They pointed out, they're like, he's not talking to them. He's talking to himself. This is Matt who goes by the church and listens to the sermon, but doesn't walk in. One of the song that's playing in his apartment is about a man who's lost his faith in episode 1. We meet him 1 year later. There's a song about like losing your faith. And it's like, I'm like, oh wow, they are really playing into this is like Faith No More, Daredevil, which is, Gramp, extremely religious. Like, it's hard to break that systemic religious like guilt.
Oh yeah.
It helps when like, you have something about you that makes you so diametrically opposed to what's going on in that religion, like me with being queer. But I didn't come out until I was 30.
Oh, like, I'm still a prude and super repressed because of my upbringing in the church. So, I'm never gonna get away from that.
Yeah,
that's just it's ingrained in who I am.
Yep, 100%. Like, it's like, oh yeah, it's.
Oh, Trevor, you've never been horny on Maine, because the voices in my head say like shame.
Every time I'm horny on Maine, it's not me being like I'm being horny. It's like in my heart, I'm actively rebelling.
Yeah,
I am like mentally. I'm like every time if I ever post anything that's even slightly horny, it's like I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so bad. There's a part of me that shrivels up and is like, oh, what does God think about this? Oh no. Catholic guilt. Which, by the way, I was watching part of Kind of Funny's thing. They bring their screencast about this.
I've not watched theirs yet. It's on my to-do list after we record it.
I finished up my work early, and I had to be there until the end of my shift, and so for me, I was just doing that. And anyway, I was like, oh, okay, I'll check out. Greg brings up being Catholic. He goes, like killing some murders, like so when I haven't finished watching it, but they mentions when he throws Bullseye off, he goes, murder's like the second worst thing you can do in Catholicism. The first is deny God and Christ and all of that. Second worst thing is murder. Nick, of course, takes it.
Seems like the rules should be reversed there.
It should be. But it's like the two cardinal sins that you can't come back from, basically. Anyway, but but Nick also then says, and number 1 is playing with your pud. It's like, God damn it, Nick Scarpino, you producer, seducer, love you.
Yeah.
Sorry, producer slash producer.
Producer slash seducer.
Yeah.
It's producer first.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a long time since I said that out loud, so it's Anyway, but it's like, religiously, it's like, murder is like the worst thing you can do, and him being like, fuck it, that's his like, of course. So he's not going to church anymore. And I mentioned it, like carrying around Foggy's his remembrance card like it's a prayer card. always puts it in his pocket where like a prayer card would go. Like it's the rituals are still there. They're just not religious, but he listens to the sermon but doesn't go in. It's very much like I love that aspect of it. And then at the very end, it's did he kill those two guys?
Yeah.
Because that's no coming back.
We'll find out next week.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and I think that just the idea of when he screams at the end, it's just like he has so much rage. And by the way, the song that kicks off in the credits, I Want to Get Free, just perfect. When that happened, I was lying on my stomach on the bed at my parents' house watching the show, and I just started pounding like my fists on the bed, just like, yes, yes. And I'm like, I love this. This is so damn good.
The needle drops have not worked for me in
Okay.
that regard because I don't know the songs. I don't have the context for those songs that like can throw in extra meaning to them. So it's just like, this is a very different sound than what I think should follow the violence and the brutality that I just saw. I think and the comparisons I'm going to make are like Fallout or Last of Us. I think do the needle drops better. Sure. In both those, even if I don't know the songs, they still fit in more tonally with whatever ending of the scene is. Here was just like, this is jarring, and it took me out of the moment.
I loved it. I thought it was great, but like the first episode's needle drop, I didn't like at the end of the episode. I don't think I reacted too strongly to, but yeah. Granted, I also was like, next episode, let's go.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Skip the credits. So yeah, the other thing of note, I guess we can touch on is before the ending, we get Fisk and Vanessa in marriage or in couples therapy, and also we had gotten the introduction that Vanessa has had an affair with somebody. Fisk mentions, I don't know if it's a character
Andy,
we know or whoever, or
I'm
whatever.
pretty sure it's the tracksuit guy that we see at the beginning of episode 1 at the Five Families. That's my thought process anyway, because there was like a moment between the two of them when Fisk shows up. And so, but also I love how he goes, I know about Andy. And she goes, don't promise me you won't kill him. Mm-hmm. And he says, I promise. And it's like, okay.
Yeah, I like the couples therapy scene there is interesting in sets up.
Oh, dude, when she straight up says like, I felt
Vanessa's
satisfied by the business, and like, damn.
Yeah. But
damn woman.
But him coming at it from the perspective of I don't want to lose my wife is like that's what he's hoping to get out of this is like, yeah, that sounds like Fisk.
That's Fisk. I care about only one thing in the world, and it's my wife, Vanessa. But I need to like the idea of like everything about power and all he's doing is always meant to be like this shell to protect Vanessa, and in the comics she has family. In general, like the idea of I have to protect them, I have to be the most powerful person to protect them. That's always the drive, and it's one of the reasons why Fisk is a somewhat sympathetic villain.
Yeah,
and I think that's played up well here.
All right, yeah, we'll see where the show goes from here. Should be some interesting stuff, especially to pick up where we leave off on this episode. I'll be curious to see where they go from here.
Absolutely, I'm stoked. I can't wait. I'm so excited, Trevor.
Yep.
This show's been so dang good.
All right. Well, let's dive into the report card. We grade from A+ to F. What do you want to give Daredevil Born Again here, Kim?
I don't care how this show ends. These 2 episodes are an A+ for me. Goddamn.
Yeah, I'll sit with an A for them. In large part just because of my own like personal aversions to like violence and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, the squick effect. I when I watched it, I was like, oh, Trevor's probably gonna get like feel his tummy's not gonna be.
It was. I mean, like
on that one, huh?
Again, going to the ominous foreboding of Bullseye and the Foggy and Karen thing. I fully like watched that through fingers kind of thing because I was like, I don't want to see.
It was a lot of blood. It was a lot of blood.
Yeah. I didn't want to see the actual moment. Like I know enough about, what's coming. I don't need to see the the physical brutality and the violence of it. So, all right. Extra credit, other suggestions if you like this. You have the Netflix Daredevil series, also on Disney Plus, as well as the Punisher series, Echo, Hawkeye, She-Hulk Attorney at Law, The Defenders, Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, and Miss Marvel are all the recommendations there. Extracurriculars, watching anything else on Disney Plus there, Cam?
Not right now. We ended Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, started up on Daredevil. I have not had a lot of time outside of work and everything going on right now, so not right now. But I have my eye on a few. Oh, Win or Lose. Yes, I've been watching Win or Lose.
Have you been watching the newer episodes of Win or Lose?
I started watching one of the episodes before I got dragged away by something else, but it's on my I'm wanting to keep watching.
Yeah, I mean, it's on my list too. Once everything's done, I'll catch up on the rest of the season. But yeah, I have not gone back and watched anything else either. So yeah, nothing from me. But that is going to do it for this week's episode of That D Plus Show. Thank you, Cam, for joining me to talk about these first couple episodes of Daredevil Born Again. Presumably, we'll be back there in April to chat through the full season as a whole. You can follow Cameron at revcabot.bsky.social. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Cam?
Yeah. Shout out to, we didn't have a That Nerdy Site Show episode this past week because of weather and health issues. But I'm very excited for this week's episode. Trevor's coming with his thoughts on Pirate Yakuza and also 2 Point Museum. So I'm really stoked to hear more about that. And hopefully I'll be able to bring something to the table this week.
There you go.
That's my goal.
We're trading off because
Yeah.
you had Citizen Sleeper a couple weeks ago. Yes. As Cameron said, we had to cancel last week's episode because when he came by to record on Saturday, there was a windstorm here in Arizona, and my power was flickering out in and out all day, and it finally came back on. Literally, you walked out the door, and a second later, before you would have gotten to your car,
Yeah, you told
the
me
power
this,
came
yeah.
back on and stayed on the rest of the night.
Which we would not have. There's no way we would have
we
known.
weren't gonna. I wasn't gonna.
The power came on 3 different times while I was here.
Yeah,
and kept cutting out.
Yeah.
So there's no guarantee we knew that was going to stay on.
Which happened again today too. When
you texted me, I was like,
while I was working today, the same kind of thing was happening where my power just kept going out. So
I just texted you a gif of a what the
yeah,
because I literally out loud at work said what the and somebody's like, are you okay? I was like, yeah, I'm fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. So we had to cancel our original recording plans on Saturday. And then Cameron was under the weather on Sunday, so we could not reconvene to reschedule there. But yeah, that just means I now have an extra game to chat about because I've been putting a ton of time into 2 Point Museum this last week. So yes, you can follow me at trevorjstarkey.bsky.social. Also shout out next week's episode is going to be Moana 2, as that drops, I believe, Wednesday next week. So I will sit down and watch that. Cameron already watched it and we talked about it in on That Nerdy Site Show a few months back. But yeah, we will chat about that next week.
I'm looking forward to seeing what you what your thoughts are on it.
Yeah. Are you going to sit down and try and rewatch it? Because one of the things was you didn't have the context at the time of it having originally been a series that then got kind of
morphed into
Frankenstein into a movie.
Yeah. Here's the thing.
If you have time, maybe you'll sit down and watch it.
My niece Eleanor, who you have met a couple of times, loves Moana and Moana 2. And so I have seen that film no less than 4 times.
Okay.
I've watched that movie a lot. Usually just it's on and I'm trying to have a conversation with adults. But also I'll sit down and watch that movie, any movie with that little girl. I love her.
All right.
So.
You follow all the latest from us over at That Nerdy Site, or go to thatnerdysite.com. If you liked what you heard, once again, please rate, review, subscribe, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Thank you for joining us. As always, stay nerdy and be good to each other. Class dismissed.